unexplainable, strange phenomenon appearing on the side of this mesa.
The whole mesa's lit
The
up.
whole mesa's lit up. You see it on camera?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
The whole thing's lit up. It's like an iridescent glow. And gone.
Oh, there were shadows going across it.
What?
Yeah.
What happens is at sunrise and sunset, there is the solar rays from the cosmos itself that line up with the electromagnetic field ley lines of the Earth. And these ley lines of the Earth land on specific X points or nodes that have throughout the last known history of humankind been utilized as nodes of energy for amplification for consciousness, for ritual practices, and for basically transcending through that electromagnetic field into ancestral memories, into future predictions, basically Wi-Fi to call up the deceased loved ones and to tap into visions of the past and the future in parallel dimensions. And there are other entities that actually exist along in those frequencies and wavelengths that understand the science of how all these places work.
There is a connection between the paranormal, UFOs, and the myths of ancient history. The clues are scattered across the landscape from a forbidden past, maybe even in your own backyard. There is a connection between the true nature of our reality, consciousness, and the unexplained. I'm Carl the Crusher. Let's explore the unknown.
Fascinating. I know we're also on top of the canyon here. Down below us, underneath the edge of the cliff and all the way along here is tons and tons of ancient petroglyphs. And there's even a fork of the river where I've had locals tell me that goes up to the south this way, where there's a lot of dead animals and animal sacrifices found. Like people are from all different walks of life try to come up these nodes, these energetic canyons, and try to tap into them. But people have been doing this forever.
Where are we right now, Don?
Most of us assume that we're on planet Earth inside of space-time. And that's the nature of reality, and that's where we are in it, on a little planet circling around a relatively normal star in a relatively normal galaxy, and it's been around. The galaxy has been around for who knows how many billions of years, in a universe that's been around for 13.8 billion years. And so that's who we are, and that's where we are. And that's the standard view, and it's worked very well in science for many, many years. The idea that space and time are fundamental has worked for centuries in science, and has been an incredibly powerful framework. But the last couple decades, especially, high energy theoretical physicists are telling us clearly that space and time cannot be the foundational framework at all. There's got to be something deeper than space-time, because space-time ceases to have any operational meaning at what's called the Planck scale, 10 to the minus 33 centimeters, 10 to the minus 43 seconds. It just ceases to make sense. There's nothing you can do operationally with it at that point. And that's not very deep, 10 to the minus 33 centimeters. It's not 10 to the minus 33 trillion centimeters, just 10 to the minus 33. So we're not talking trillions of decimal points, we're just 33 decimal points. And it falls apart. So, and the physicists, high energy theoretical physicists, are successfully finding new structures entirely outside of space-time and entirely prior to quantum theory, because they're also saying that not only is space-time not fundamental, but quantum theory itself is not fundamental and will have to arise with space-time together from some deeper structures that are entirely outside of space-time, not curled up like dimensions curled up inside of space-time as in string theory, but entirely beyond space-time. And they're finding structures like the amplituhedron and decorated permutations and so forth. So it's not like they're saying, oh, hey, we can't do this, space-time, it's over. No, they're saying, great, we have permission to start looking deeper and beyond space-time, and they're finding these new structures. So we experience ourselves as if we are little objects inside space-time. But our best science tells us that interpretation of our experience is wrong, and we need some deeper interpretations of our experience. And my own take is that we just need to reverse things. We think of ourselves as tiny objects inside space-time. Just reverse it. Space-time is a tiny headset that we use. We're the consciousness that uses space-time as a headset. And so it's the thing that's little.
So at a sacred site, the reason you have better dreams and better vision and better telepathy, the magnetic line cross created compression. It's well known that the Earth grid magnetic lines cross just like this. This is the grid of sacred sites where magnetic lines cross, yes? Like, for example, where the pyramids and sacred sites are located. They all fit this nest. So actually, this is a map of the major magnetic lines of Earth, for sure. It has been measured many times that at these sites, telepathy is far more possible. Compression at these sacred sites is called a longitudinal node. Because the longitudinal waves bounce in and out of compression at the symmetrical fractal nodes, exchanging inertia between transverse and longitudinal. So the longitudinal wave, you can't feel it unless you get to the center of compression, and then you can do what's called embed in the array, that's why if you lie at a sacred site and close your eyes, suddenly you can see the whole hologram for miles around from the inside. You're inhabiting the array. It's why the Aboriginals called it dreaming track songline. If you have access to sacred sites or where magnetic lines cross, you can, it's called, you can use the DNA radio.
Yeah, look at these ones here. This is clearly a significant spot on top. We've got clear markings here in this step pattern. Over here on the edge of the precipice of the cliff, you can see the people hiking clear down there. You can see this big S pattern. Same kind of thing carved into the rocks there. Right out on the tip. Up here as well. Another big spiraling serpent line that coils back. It'd be very fascinating to watch how the sunrise and the sunset comes up, plays over top of these. And then we have this big pattern right here. So all of it together right there along the edge. Very cool. I bet this whole top of this mesa continues with carvings. Yeah, here's another one. Carved right into the top. Let's see, is there any here? Yes. You hop down there and look back. There's some on the front facing edge over the side there. I don't want to get too far. It's a sheer drop over, probably over 100 feet down. But there's definitely petroglyphs. And look at how they did it. They did all these curved lines going down. Look at that. Fascinating. So many glyphs up here on the top as well as down on the bottom. Most people just hike down in the bottom of the ravine and they don't look up top. A lot of the times when I come up here and explore specifically this trail and other locations, but I run into people that share parts of their version of the story with me. Now, one time when I was up here with Ty and we were filming the summer solstice event, there was a whole group of tourists that came up, piled up at the Petroglyph site where the solar event seems to be the most prominent on the bird shaman. And when that event was going on, one of the conversations that I heard the tour guide having, she's been doing this forever, she mentioned that she was comparing everything through her beliefs in Mormonism and the Mormon church. But she talked about how up here somewhere in the canyon or on the ridge was actually a room that was like a cave. And she called it the Holy of Holies, which is in Mormonism or in ancient Hebrew text and meanings, it is the inner sanctum where the high priest or the shaman would go in to a closed chamber to commune with God, or basically to meet with the spirits, meet and talk face to face with Jehovah, if you're talking about the Old Testament. So she said that the petroglyphs in the story that they told all the way up the canyon side led all the way up the canyon to a room that was like a cave full of sacred carvings. And she refused to say where it was. She refused to talk about it. And she related it to being an ancient indigenous Holy of Holies. To me, that means that it is the center point of the longitudinal node where the compression of the electromagnetic field of ancestral memory and of the phenomena is at its highest point within a chamber of stone in the rocks where you can sit that has been carved and actually point consciousness. And is this a teleportation chamber? Is it a portal chamber? Is it a dimensional consciousness resonant chamber, just like they were doing in Montauk and the Stanford Research Institutes, putting people in isolation chambers and resonating with these phenomena and with these events? So the question is, when are we going to get to the top of the Magic Mesa to confirm the geomancy sacred stone circle at the top of the mesa there? We need to go back into the valley down below, and we need to continue to explore the top of this mesa and this ridge line to look for clues and artifacts to find this chamber, the sacred Holy of Holies, this inner chamber of transformation. And then we're going to see what's in there, if it's really here, what it looks like, and what happens when I sit in it overnight. We're starting to get up here high enough. We're farther past where I've ever been up this trail, up this side of the canyon. I definitely, when I got stung by bees, was clear back there. So we're beyond that, making a lot more progress today. So we'll see. Is there a cave? Is there a secret chamber? There's definitely holes you can fall in and disappear, that's for sure. Let's keep hiking and see if we can find any more. And notice how there are all these just like energetic symbols, almost like plasma forms, right? I'm becoming more and more of a fan of the plasma phenomenon. I think a lot of that is what I've been experiencing. Even the ones that look like humanoid figures down on the ground could have intelligence. There could be another form of intelligence that has non-biological attributes to it. And maybe they like these canyons. Maybe they're like capacitors or condensers. Ancient indigenous people were trying to draw all kinds of stuff. I mean, this could be symbols for water and everything, but you rarely see carvings that depict normal villager life. It's always strange symbols, like they were trying to describe something very unusual going on. I'm up at the top right now where the river actually curves and turns and goes north. It goes this way and then snakes back here and then goes that way. So I'm kind of right at a bend up at the top of a big cliff. So I'm going to sit here for a minute and take a coffee break. Let's keep going. I feel really inspired by the logic and the science, the plasma physics, and everything that we've been talking about and listening to, and how it fits in with what we're doing with the MUPOS, the Modular Unidentified Phenomena Alert System. If these are phenomena that are coherence that occurs between the universe and the consciousness of the brain and the plasma in the brain on the synapses, and by creating that synchronicity, that harmony, that creates the that merging of the two cones of electromagnetic field of plasma within the brain and within the environment, the node of the ley lines in these ancestral canyons where there's stone circles. It starts to make sense to a lot of the way the ancient indigenous people lived and dwelled and why they were carving the things that they were on the rocks. It's almost as if when you understand the science behind how reality works as a matrix, as a hologram, as an electromagnetic field that is in harmony with human consciousness and this experience of perception and linear time and all of that, when you dig into it, it makes sense why, ancient indigenous people, when they would carve like a fish or a deer, an antelope or a goat or something into the rocks, the concept of them having an actual relationship with that animal as like a telepathic communication, where it's almost like an arrangement is made where through the electromagnetic field of the earth, the tribal people, the indigenous people, through their rituals and ceremonies, are basically going out into nature to collect, hunt and gather, bring back the fish, the deer, the elk, and everything, or the buffalo, that the universe actually just gives to them as a part of the cooperative relationship between the indigenous person's unified mind with that field. We call it today law of attraction or manifestation, and we have all these new age terms for it. But ancient indigenous people, it was their way of life, spiritualism and customs, to where they would almost even take on the attributes of the bird, the serpent, the deer, or whatever, and even dress up like them, embody them, carve them in the rocks, and then as they would go out to manifest or law of attract it, imagine that that deer, the goat, or the fish, or the bird actually has a conscious relationship through the longitudinal field and agrees to be taken, agrees in a relationship to be harvested. And so everything is done out of love, out of offering, out of self-sacrifice. Nothing is just taken, hunted, pillaged, or anything. It's all this universal harmony that has to do with your consciousness and the node of the ley line and the environment going out into the longitudinal waveform of the unified field compression, getting into harmony with the balance of the music of that and the way that it's going, and then living in a way that is shareable, unifying in a way that is uploadable or downloadable or shareable, that can be interfaced with the environment. We in our modern society have this attitude of just like going and mining, pillaging, harvesting, taking the resources. We see everything as supply and demand. It's like there's gold in the earth, let's go dig it out. We don't understand this idea of having a relationship with Gaia, the living mother. This idea of the we are an inseparable part of the node of this electromagnetic field. So I think it's totally different, and it changes your perspective of nature and the reality of just the use of rocks and crystals and meditation. All that stuff that gets teased and made fun of is really a part of cutting edge plasma physics and consciousness understanding, and how we move from the synapses and the array of the consciousness of the brain into these alternate arrays, the array of the universe, of the earth, ancestral memory, and other things. But yeah, this is kind of an interesting vlog where we're hiking and talking and learning a lot about what this is all about and what it means, so that as we go into this new season of research, we can all experience it together. This idea of spooky action at a distance makes sense when you understand cohesiveness and the idea of getting in synchronicity with the longitudinal array of the way reality works, like a matrix, synchronizing with that. Then things like space and time at a distance are nothing but a phenomena of the rotation of that compression of the unified field. The spin of the toroid of that compression is what we perceive as time, and technically all of that inertia is what gives everything mass and gravity, and it's all kind of an illusion. It's fascinating stuff. And this is what it's all about. You come out here, hike in these ancient indigenous canyons, and expand your understanding of yourself and reality, and gain a deeper respect of the ancient Aboriginal and Indigenous people that were in touch with all of this. And now with our modern society, how we have lost contact, and we think it's all UFOs and poltergeists and paranormal activity, when really it's the true nature of reality. And we've just lost sight of the ability how to interface our consciousness with that higher array. We've hiked our way all the way back from where you see those houses, more like that building there, kind of right over that ridge. Hiked all the way up along this whole hilltop of the canyon, all the way up to here. And wow, what a beautiful outlook. What an amazing place. That's one of the things that we've been learning a lot about over the last several years too, is how whether it is the government using radar systems and Wi-Fi and satellite arrays and everything, and we are being bombarded with these junk signals and this fog of electromagnetic field that could be very harmful through Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and all that. And you have to get out of the city. You have to get out of the big aluminum constructs. You have to get out of the big man-made termite mounds made out of metal. These big steel buildings, aluminum frame structures. You have to get out into the ancient sacred nodes of these canyons and literally ground yourself, not just physically, but your consciousness, and get into the right alignment, into synchronicity with the feeling and the energy and the flow of it, and reconnect with your heritage and spiritual side of your life. Otherwise, it's literally destructive to the soul. It's destructive at a fundamental scientific level, even to the synapses and the plasma flow of your DNA and your consciousness in your brain, even at a biological level. But if there really is an afterlife, if we really are on any kind of a sacred journey that continues on past this life, I think it is in harmony with the earth, and it's in harmony with these ancient places. And I think we can learn a lot about them by visiting and getting out of the city, these big aluminum high-rises that are just like giant counterfeit antennas transmitting, blasting us full of artificial signals. And when you really come out and understand the secrets of this ancient wisdom, you realize why the ancient Egyptians built the pyramids, and the Aztec and the Maya, the Olmec, the Aboriginal people. Like in Australia, they had the Aboriginal people there talk about the dream song, where you literally go out, do geomancy among the rocks, point your consciousness towards the song of the universe, and in that dream time, you literally like Wi-Fi your ancestors. It's like you get to do a phone call, long distance phone call with consciousness into the past or the future. But it's the same idea, this spot of altered state of consciousness between awake and asleep in these ancient canyons literally creates a black hole, a wormhole, a portal in consciousness to perceive all of the phenomena. And this is what we're talking about. What do you think is really going on at Skinwalker Ranch, right? You've got the Uinta Basin, which is the largest longitudinal east to west mountain range in the entire continental United States. You got the Uinta Basin mountain range going east to west. Like, imagine this range behind me going east to west, just like this. And then down the valley below, where all those mineral deposits flow down, right at the base of that mesa, where all of that energy through the flowing water, which is like a form of plasma, goes into the aquifers and swirls underground like a vortex, is right underneath the mesa at Skinwalker Ranch. And then you wonder why there's a thin spot. Is because Skinwalker Ranch is obviously, and Bob Bigelow obviously knew and figured out that they had maps or some kind of radar knowledge or understanding where the ley lines had these X points, and they were going where those spots were the highest. And the Sherman family and the people living there were definitely experiencing paranormal activity and seeing UFOs. And so they were going and doing research and buying the property at these nodes, these X points on the ley lines of the earth, where the ancient indigenous people knew they were ancestral ritual land that would act as a longitudinal ELF access point for consciousness. And then they would have my friends Chris Bartle and these other guys out there doing phase 1 of the MUPOS study, trying to interface consciousness into that flow coming out of the mesa, and then reporting on what would happen, whether it be paranormal phenomena, encounters, time dilation and slippage, or remote viewing. And so it all kind of makes sense when you understand what they were really doing and what these places are all about, right? I know there's got to be more petroglyphs up here, but I sure haven't seen any in a while. But think about it, they would have figured out during the Cold War, and in places like Skinwalker Ranch and elsewhere, especially before that, during Montauk, MK Ultra, and all of that, where they probably figured out that certain little kids, especially Native Americans, were especially already primed and tuned. And so they started buying these ancestral nodes and places and building either military bases or radar installations or doing experiments with psychic spies on those pieces of property, trying to get absolute accuracy. So I think our intuition about all these places we've been going, from like Skinwalker Ranch, Mount Wilson Ranch, and then especially even where we are now, this ancient canyon of the Magic Mesa, is absolutely potent. This is definitely an ancestral node, an indigenous canyon that has the stone circles that all these scientists, going all the way back to Project Paperclip, we're talking about. Everything that we're talking about fits right in with the video that I did recently after going to Hestelen in Norway, where we saw the UAPs, or plasma phenomena, in the sky. And then we met Maximus, who was part of the writers, the authors of that scientific journal about extraterrestrial life in the thermosphere, plasma entities that are a non-biological form of consciousness and intelligent life that can be the size of a ping pong ball, like a glowing ball of plasma, all the way up to the size of a football stadium, like a whale made out of plasma that can look metallic like a flying saucer, transforming spaceship, all kinds of stuff. And they even talk about, is it possible, and speculate, can these things come down on the ground, come out of the earth, and even appear, shapeshift, and interact with a form of consciousness to where they pretend like they're human and they act like us? Not only that, is that what we are? Are we plasma forms of consciousness that have learned how to grow a shell through the electromagnetic field and through the biological processes of evolution, to where now we have a physical body to walk around in? Pretty wild to think about. Well, we've gone all the way up here, farther than I've ever made it before. We could keep going. I'm sure this wraps all the way up and over the top, potentially even up and over and around, or hidden somewhere back here or down on the cliffside is this spot that they call the Holy of Holies. So with everything that we've been talking about and the stuff from Dan Winter that I've been sharing in all his audio, hopefully that's compelling and informative to what we're doing here and what this entire project is about, and why even Washington, D.C. is very interested at certain levels, because they understand all of this. They build these phased arrays and weaponize it all, and they've been doing it since the Cold War to try and affect the direction of the array, essentially change the course of time. So here we are, we're on this hike together, and I think it's time that we kind of, well, I don't know, make sure and subscribe, turn on notifications, and come back. Join the Patreon page if you want to join the research team, the inner circle. It looks like there's some kind of a settlement up there. There's like benches or something roped off with boards. Maybe there's some ancient artifacts in a historical landmark. Let's keep going in the next episode. Yes! I am so happy that I followed my intuition, because I mean, this is just unbelievably obvious that that was a spot to sit.